Donald Trump issued 26 executive orders in his first day in office, the most of any president ever. I went through them, and I'm going to give you the 6 that you really need to pay attention to. All right, so let's go through it. Let me first start and say some of these executive orders were just dumb. He issued an executive order to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Okay, that is not going to make my list. But it is important to look at these executive orders, right? Because it affirms the incredible power contained within the presidency. So Congress does not need to approve or disapprove of these executive orders. These are things that a president can do exclusively. Congress could, in theory, pass legislation that sort of nullifies an executive order, and then the president would have to issue another executive order to sort of override that and go back and forth. Usually it doesn't happen. Usually this is solely the president's prerogative. It's been used in the past for good and for ill. So in 1942, Franklin Delano Roosevelt issued an executive order that ordered the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, one of the darkest moments in American history. In 1948, Harry Truman issued an executive order desegregating the military. So again, there's the good and the bad. The power of an executive, of a presidential executive order can be used for good or ill. And sometimes we don't know whether it's for good or ill in the moment. So I think it's important that context matters here. But remember, as I said at the top, no president has issued more executive orders on day one than Donald Trump. He did 26 executive orders on January 20th, 2025. By comparison, Joe Biden did signed 9 executive orders on his first day in office in 2021. He went on to sign 162 or issue 162 executive orders. Donald Trump, back in 2017 in his first term, issued 1 executive order on his first day in office and went on to issue 220 total. All right, so that's the context. Now let's get to the 6 that really matter. And I'm going to start with one that I've already made a video about, which is, and I won't spend too much time on this because you can go watch my full video on it, but it's Trump's pardoning and commuting the sentences of 1,500 plus people who were arrested, convicted, or jailed for their actions on January 6th. I think this is massive in that it undermines the rule of law. About 1,000 of those people were nonviolent misdemeanor crimes. Fine. You want to pardon them? Fine. But 500 of them were convicted of violent crimes, including assaulting police officers, 139 of which were reportedly assaulted and hurt during January 6th. By pardoning them and commuting the sentences of people like the leader of the Proud Boys, this far-right nationalist movement named Enrique Tarrio, I think you are sending a message that the rule of law applies except when it is applied to people who support a narrative Donald Trump wants to push, which is that January 6th, 2021 actually wasn't that big a deal, and these people are all political prisoners. No, they are not. Okay, so that's number 1. I'm not going to spend too much time with it. The others I want to do. Number 2, Donald Trump issued an executive order that ends birthright citizenship. Okay, what is birthright citizenship? Birthright citizenship is the idea that even if your parents are illegally in America, if you are born in America, anywhere in the United States, you are guaranteed American citizenship. It's enshrined in the 14th Amendment. It says anyone born in the United States is a citizen. Trump, on the campaign trail, both in 2016 and in 2024, has raged against this. He's essentially said, look, people are abusing this. They're coming illegally into the country and having the child, just so he or she can be an American citizen. Now, this is already the subject of a massive legal fight. Last time I checked, 22 states were filing legal claims to object to this happening. This is going to be fought out in the courts and probably in truth is going to wind up in the Supreme Court. But that's number 2. Number 3, Trump pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords. Now, the Paris Climate Accords, if you don't follow this closely, effectively what it is an agreement among the major industrialized nations in the world to try to reduce greenhouse gases and other activities that pollute the environment and contribute to climate change. Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accords when he became president in 2017, although the way these things work, it didn't actually go into effect until 2020. Joe Biden put the United States back in the Paris Climate Accords, and Trump is now saying, I want out of them. Again, Trump believes that despite the fact that the United States is the second biggest polluter in the world behind China, Trump believes that what's good for the goose is not good for the gander, that China isn't being held to the same standards that the U.S. is, and that unless everyone is on board, why should the U.S. be the ones who are fighting with one hand behind their back on this effectively? Okay, which brings me to the fourth one, which is a similar kind of dynamic, which is Trump has pulled the U.S. or requested that the U.S. be removed from the World Health Organization. Now, this is over COVID-19. Remember that Trump believes his presidency, his first term, was on track to be one of the greatest presidencies of all time until COVID, a worldwide pandemic, hit, and he was forced to deal with that. And that was the reason, I think, in his mind, that his approval numbers went down, that he lost, although he's never admitted he lost. And so I think he looks at the WHO and he says, this organization was too soft on China. They were too soft on COVID. They rely way too much on the United States. For what we give, we don't get enough. And I did some research on this. 1/5 of the funding for the World Health Organization comes from the United States, even though there are 196 countries in it. So when we take ourselves out of something like that, we are fundamentally changing how that organization is going to work. Now, that, interestingly enough, requires approval from Congress to come out of the World Health Organization because of the way it was set up. Will Trump get that? Good question, which I don't totally know the answer to. Obviously, Republicans have a majority in the House and the Senate, very narrow majority in the House. So we'll see, but that's one to keep an eye on. All right, my fifth executive order that Trump issued that really matters is he declared a national emergency on the border, which is sort of this umbrella policy that's got a lot of little things in it. Among them, I wrote all these down because I didn't want to forget. It halts all refugee admissions from everywhere in the world, for the next 4 months. It declares drug cartels and gangs as foreign terrorists, and it orders the military to prioritize sealing the border. Again, this is in keeping with what Trump campaigned on. He believes the immigration system is out of control. He says we need to close the border and figure out what we need to do in order to stop the flow of undocumented immigrants coming into this country. This order formalizes that and goes a long way, not all the way, but goes a long way to sort of making good on that campaign promise. And it will have a profound effect on our border policy. The last one, the sixth executive order you should pay attention to because it matters, is Donald Trump declared that there are two sexes. There are males and there are females. And that applies in a lot of different ways that you might not be totally familiar with. Like, I had to do some digging on this, but basically what it says is that, it says that transgender non-binary people don't really exist. That you're either, what you were born with is what you are. You're either a male or a female. It's a sort of a technical thing as it relates to how government agencies refer to people and that sort of thing. But it is, again, very much in keeping with his campaign promise where he said, there's men and there's women, and men shouldn't be playing in women's sports. People who are born men shouldn't be playing in women's sports and that sort of thing. So again, making do and keeping do a campaign promise. So again, the six that matter, just in summary: 1, pardoning and commuting the sentences of the January 6 people. Thank you, Thumb. 2, birthright citizenship, ending it. Huge legal fight. 3, pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords and climate change, global warming more generally. 4, pulling out of the World Health Organization, largely due to Trump's unhappiness with how COVID was handled and his belief that WHO is too soft on China. 5, declaring a national emergency on the border. And 6, declaring that there are only two sexes. So there's There were 26 executive orders on Inauguration Day. There were more the next day. There are going to be more in the coming weeks. Again, I think he's going to shatter all records for executive orders as he tries to consolidate power in the executive, in the president. But those are the 6 that I think are going to have long reaching impacts, broad impacts in the way that the government functions, in the way that policy is made. So those are the 6 to pay attention to. So that's your primer, your Cliff's Notes of the executive orders. As always, 4 things you can do for me. Number 1, you can subscribe to this channel. We are surging. Since the inauguration, we've added thousands of new subscribers. I'd love to keep that momentum going. I'm trying to make good content, informative content, educational content, authentic content, transparent content, independent, unbiased content for you. So I'm going to continue doing that. Number 2, you can like this video, which is easy. Just give it the thumbs up. Number 3, you can comment on this video. Do it for the algorithm. And number 4, you can tell, and many of you are doing this, tell 10 of your friends about this channel. I'm going to keep making videos every single day, usually 2 a day. Continue to do a live stream every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, as well as a pop-up live stream here and there. Continue to do YouTube Shorts. I'm going to do some more live shows where I'm streaming in some live political content and offering some of my own commentary on it, kind of a political Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I'm doing all the things. Support me, subscribe, spread the word. Take care.